Leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. 3 minutes past 8 is the time. You are listening to Cross Question, LBC's political panel debate show on a Wednesday at 8. We are streaming live on our Twitter page, Facebook page, YouTube and on our website at lbc.co.uk. Joining me for the next hour to take your calls are Alistair Burt, the former Foreign Office Minister and Conservative MP for North East Bedfordshire. He's one of the 47 Conservative ministers to have either been sacked or resigned in Theresa May's 2.5 years as Prime Minister. That's half a government. Layla Moran is Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford West and Abingdon and the spokesperson on education. Stephen Pound is Shadow Northern Ireland Minister and Labour MP for Ealing North. And Natalie Bennett, former leader of the Green Party. They're here to take your calls on anything you like. I suspect I know what the first question is going to be. But as I say, you can phone in and ask questions on any aspect of political life at the moment that you would like to.
Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
Well, welcome to you all. Stephen Pound is conducting the orchestra there. That's actually my job, but there we go.
Yeah, I used to be a conductor, you know.
Did you really? A bus conductor?
Yes, but
Right, let's get to our first.
We know each other.
Let's get to our first question. Michael is in Brentwood. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Hi. What would you like to ask?
Well, I have serious concerns about Gavin Williamson being fired. I think that whether or not he did the leak was very much in the public interest. If a government is acting against the advice of their security people, then that is in the public interest for us to know. Why are they acting that way? Why are they going against given advice? And this will stop other things coming out further down the line. We won't get another expensive scandal information, all that kind of thing. I just think it's wrong, and I wonder if the panel agree.
OK, Alistair Burt, you are a former minister. You signed the Official Secrets Act. You've been in one or two fairly sensitive posts in government over the years. Was the Prime Minister right?
Yes. The National Security Council, on which I have on occasions sat, it's normally Cabinet Ministers, but occasionally you fill in if you need to. It's part of the machinery of government that is really the most sensitive. Now, I only know what's in the public arena. The gentleman caller said if a leak is in the public interest, it should be handled differently. I have to say I beg to differ. I don't think those who sit round the National Security Council chamber can decide whether or not they think a leak is in the public interest, and I don't think if others are sitting around the table they should fear that someone is making that calculation. There are other ways to express concern about decisions which we all know rather than leaking. So if the Prime Minister is convinced, if the inquiry is convinced that a leak has been found in a situation from which there should not be a leak, the Prime Minister is entirely justified in taking her actions.
When you sat on the National Security Council, I'm not asking you obviously to breach any confidences, but when you've sat on the National Security Council, you go to the meeting, you go back to your department, Foreign Office in your case. How many people do you tell about what's happened in that meeting? Because some people think, well, it may not have been Gavin Williamson, but it could have been somebody else within the MOD. He's denying that, of course.
You would speak to those people who were involved in your briefing about the outcome. Officials can, of course, be there as well. No, there are a range of people who will sit and have access to the NSC. As I say, I'm not privy to the inquiry, so I don't know what it's found. And it's for others to make a judgment about who may have said what. And presumably, the decision has been taken at top level because evidence points in a certain way. But of course, you discuss it with one or two people who you would need to discuss it with. But beyond that, you wouldn't, and you don't spread that information around.
Gavin Williamson clearly believes that he's been badly treated here. There have been examples of ministerial resignations or sackings in the past where it's proved, I think of Peter Mandelson, for example, Mandelson's second resignation, where it's quite clear that in the end he wasn't guilty of what he was accused of.
He would have been.
Stop it. Is there any way back for Gavin Williamson after this?
Well, I don't know, Ian. We're 2 hours since the news came out of the decision, and I said I am only able to reflect on the information that is already out there. I have no other, so I don't know to what degree there is any doubt or anything about it. And all we have is what has been published and what the government and what indeed Gavin has said.
He is a politician who has some very strong allies on the Conservative benches, but many enemies as well, emanating from his time as David Cameron's PPS and Chief Whip. There was some rejoicing tonight, wasn't there?
Well, if there was, I'm not part of any of that. This is a disappointing incident that doesn't speak well about politics all round. I've got no room for that sort of behaviour or anything like that. Colleagues' ups and downs, of which there are many. What goes around comes around, and it's. But
that's what a lot of people are saying, that he's dished it out and has created. I mean, be nice to people on the way up, because then they might be nice to you on the way down.
As I say, what goes around comes around, and there'll be plenty who'll be thinking about that tonight.
Layla Moran, your putative leadership rival Jo Swinson has stolen a march on you tonight. She's called for a police inquiry. Do you support what she said?
I absolutely do. No, she's done absolutely the right thing, and. There are two things here. I have sympathy with what the caller was saying. We need more transparency in government. We need to know what decisions are being made. So much of this government's modus operandi has been about keeping stuff from Parliament. It's been through motions in the House that we've got the information that we've needed to make some of the big decisions of the day. And certainly, you throw back to what was hidden and not done for the Iraq War. There is a general feel that we need more information, not less. That said, when it comes to these very sensitive matters at the National Security Council, you have to hope that a government operates in a way that's more professional than leaking when they've got issues like this. I'd much rather, if there is a sensitivity around how we are going to roll out 5G, this could be transformative for this country, this is the Internet of Things, it's incredibly important, Huawei being involved in has an agreement with the Chinese state that it would share all of its information. Yes, clearly there are things that need to be looked at here. However, a leak, I'm not sure is the way to do it. We need more transparency in government, but I don't think that a leak from the NSC, potentially breaching the Official Secrets Act, is the right thing to do. I think Jo was absolutely right to write to Cressida Dick this afternoon. Vince has backed that call, and we all do, and I hear others are too.
Isn't it?
Let's make sure that, and if he's innocent, and actually to be fair to him, if he's innocent, I've heard somewhere that he's blaming civil service. Some people in the civil service for this rather than him. Whatever it is, whoever did it needs to be absolutely investigated.
He said that it's the result of some sort of vendetta between him and Mark Sedwill, the cabinet secretary.
Well, if that's true, then that needs investigating.
I don't know what the provenance of that is. Stephen Pound, we understand that the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary and the Defence Secretary in the National Security Council said they were dead against Huawei being involved in this. Now, Layla's obviously right that you don't leak that, but there's clearly a big concern here. What's your take on what's happened so far?
I think we mustn't conflate the two issues. The idea you can't. I mean, a caller from Brentwood actually said that if it's something that people need to know about, then it should be out there. That's a very attractive argument. Without any question of that.
But particularly for an opposition.
Well, indeed. But it seems like everybody in Parliament's in opposition at the moment, to be perfectly honest. I can't see who's in government at the present time. But the difficulty is who decides what is in the public interest. Now, a government cannot do its business. It cannot get its business done if it does not have confidentiality and if it does not have security within that. Now, what I can't understand is, if the case was so strong that Gavin Williamson felt that he needed to actually get it out there, why couldn't he convince the rest of the cabinet? Because, he's not on his own. He's not an outrider in the cabinet. He's a key member of the team there. So if it was that strong, why? And then what about the issue with Australia, with the Five Eyes, with America, all the other people who are saying, well, it's going to be very, very difficult, if we sign this arrangement with Huawei. So I think there's two issues. But the bottom line is that a government cannot do its business if it cannot trust. I've never sat in the Security Council, but I've been in part of the civil service briefings which have come back from it afterwards. Normally the permanent secretary and a few other people. And even if the redacted bit that we saw, and I'm talking about Northern Irish stuff, was so sensitive that it would be absolutely irresponsible, immoral and dangerous to actually leak that. And I think you've got to realise that, words can kill. and this can be dangerous. I'm not saying Huawei, this particular business is in that class, but some of the Northern Ireland stuff I've seen, and some of the stuff you've seen in the Middle East, Alistair, it cannot be said immediately, because quite simply it would cause immense damage. One of the reasons I have difficulty with Julian Assange, to be perfectly honest.
Well, there are many reasons to have
I know, but that's
differences with Julian Assange, it has to be said. Natalie Bennett, it is, in an ideal world, we would know more of what goes on in government. Transparency, sunlight is the best form of disinfectant, David Cameron used to say, but I think the longer he went on in government, the more he realised that sometimes isn't possible.
Chief Justice Brandeis, I think, said that.
Was it? Well, I remember David Cameron saying it. Natalie,
you're much younger than me.
Not much. Natalie, what do you think of what's happened today? Do you have any doubt that Gavin Williamson did do this?
Well, I think all we can go on is the evidence that's presented and assume that the judgment was made on that. And I think we can also look back over, Gavin, his record over his time in office, and then indeed when he was appointed. And, as you said in the introduction, 47 ministers. Theresa May's wisdom or lack thereof in appointing someone to such a sensitive post that's got us to this position, and we can look back over a record of gaffes, a record of statements that have caused real international damage.
You're talking about when he told the Russians to shut up on Huawei.
You've been polishing
I gave you the lovely opening for that one, Ian. Well done. But I think we're having a conversation. We're having a conversation now. Voters will be going to the polls within hours, and there's this discussion now. Is Theresa May going to look a bit better having done this? Taking decisive action and acted. But I think we've really got to look at the fact that someone who was clearly inappropriate was appointed to a really sensitive post, and we can only assume that something went wrong.
You say that on the basis of, and he has committed quite a few gaffes over the time of his period as Defence Secretary, but he also got a lot of money out of the Chancellor for the Ministry of Defence, which made him quite popular among some people within that department. Not all, but some.
But I think, if we look back to the history, and there was a lot of concern when he was appointed. It wasn't something, it wasn't something that emerged over his period in office and has been followed, in the last few hours, last few days. This is something that went back to the start. And, we're reminded again, we have a government in absolute chaos. We have a government facing, huge questions. We saw Theresa May, actually speaking in public, facing the public for the first time in weeks today. We really, really do not have a functional government.
I think it's important. Are we actually going to say what Gavin Williamson's achievements were? Because I have to say, looking at it, from the other side of the chamber, we now have twice as many people in prison as we have in the Royal Navy. We have less than 40,000 people in the Royal Navy. Defence procurement has been an absolute disaster. Look at our maritime procurement. Look at the shipbuilding. But the questions
to be fair, that's gone on for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But he was going to come in and actually get a grip on this. I mean, the whole recruitment issue has been a scandal, and he's never even addressed the outstanding issues like deep cut and some of the other ones. So I think that he did actually achieve a certain degree of popularity within the MOD early on because he managed to get some money out of the Treasury. But what's he done with that, Ian? What's he done with it?
Well, he hasn't had it yet, to be fair.
Well, he did it in the spending review last
Alistair.
year.
Let me make 2 points going forward. I think it's important. Firstly, on the transparency point, remember, it was this government that set up the National Security Council in order to deal with what had become sofa government and the origins of the Iraq War and everything else. There is a difference between having proper structures and leaks that provide an opportunity for anyone who thinks they should get information out there to do so. There is now a proper structure to deal with some of the complex issues that were dealt with inadequately by a previous Labour government, and I think the Conservative government deserves credit in relation to that. And secondly, let's focus on going forward. Penny Mordaunt is an excellent choice for this role. She served in the department as a minister. She's an active reservist, the first woman Defence Secretary. She has clearly a constituency based around a port and the seaboard that she defends and works in down in Portsmouth. This is a great appointment. All governments move on. And the situation, it's been the most unusual situation as one of the 47. Who knows, there are all sorts of different reasons and issues, and some of us wish to put them behind us and move on and recognise there's opportunities to come forward. But I think we should concentrate. Penny is a great appointment, as is Rory, and so I think the government is strengthened by this, having taken action in a difficult circumstance, and I think it's been an important important thing to do.
Someone tweeted me earlier to say, well, of course, there is now a vacancy in the Foreign Office. Wouldn't it be a good idea to put Alistair and Burt back there?
Good idea. I'd back that.
Third time.
You may think that. I could not possibly comment.
That would be excellent.
That means you wouldn't say no, though, would you?
I love the job. I love the Middle East. I love the development portfolio. I felt an important reason to make a stand on a particular point of principle in Brexit, as many have done on different sides.
Well,
that's done now. I don't think anyone is in any doubt that should an opportunity arise, of course, I would want to serve in the position again. But it's not my shout. You can't have ministers popping in and out, and I understand
with a woman Secretary of State for Defence and a woman Shadow Secretary of State for Defence in Nia Griffiths, there is going to be spluttering in the Army and Navy Club. People are
well,
going
I
to be...
sincerely hope that one of the things that gets sorted out is gender balance in the armed forces. You know, that's one of the things that Gavin Williamson has not addressed at all.
Gender balance in the... I mean, that's a whole new kettle of fish, isn't it? What are you saying, that in the Army there should be 50% female?
Not necessarily 50%. Not all roles would lend themselves to it, but I do the Parliamentary Armed Forces Scheme, for example. It's one of the things they're actively working on, but we've looked at this at public accounts level, and there just hasn't been that drive. So actually, maybe this is... I agree. You know, maybe this is something that Penny can bring to this role. She had... I don't know where the Women Inequalities brief has gone. That's one of the ones that seems to be passed around very easily. I'm slightly concerned that it was Penny, exactly, but I don't know if it's staying with her or if it's moving. And, you know, Rory Stewart leaving prisons. She was doing some decent stuff. I was interested to see what was going to come of that.
Well, that's the trouble with the prisons portfolio. It keeps getting a succession of people who start doing interesting stuff, and then when they move, it all comes to an end.
But if we're going to talk about, you know, recruitment in the armed forces, you know, hopefully she might address a long-standing issue of child soldiers and recruitment of 16 and 17-year-olds, because that's an absolute disgrace and something that really needs to be. No, they don't.
Hang on. We've got lots of topics there that we could get some questions on. Who knows? 0345 6060 973. You could phone in, not just on Gavin Williamson. You could phone in on Labour's new Brexit policy, which we talked about yesterday. I'm sure Stephen Pound would love to spend the rest of the programme talking about that, or he might want to talk about Jeremy Corbyn's latest little problem with anti-Semitism, and also Venezuela. What's going on there? We talked about that in the news hour. 0345 6060 973. You're listening to Cross Question. It's 8:20.
This is LBC.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face. And there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere, your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
At QuickFit, we want you to have complete peace of mind. That's why right now, we're giving away a free dash cam worth $79.99 to every customer who buys 2 or more Michelin tyres. Just book online or head down to your local QuickFit today and drive away happy with a free dash cam. For terms and conditions, visit quickfit.com.
At Indeed, we understand that when it comes to hiring, it's important to have a large talent pool to choose from. But sometimes, too many good options can be overwhelming. That's why Indeed doesn't just give you access to a large pool of job seekers. We also offer screener tools that let you instantly narrow down your search. Hone in on hiring with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/redeem. Terms and conditions apply.
A 5-star vacuum cleaner. Powerful, manoeuvrable, this baby is the real deal. From cat hair to cobwebs, this sucks in everything in sight. Even you. That's right. This is a fake review, and I'm getting paid to write it. So while you're left with a dodgy vac, I'll be the one who's really cleaning up.
A fake review could cost you more than you think. A Which membership helps you avoid these lies. Search Which for impartial product reviews. Which, keep questioning.
Global Player. Radio, playlists and podcasts. All together. And all for free. Whatever your mood, whatever you're doing, and wherever you're going. Global Player. Download it from your App Store now.
What do you need to get the very best start in your media career? How about state-of-the-art TV and music studios, industry-beating radio studios, the very latest technology? The opportunity to learn from the best minds in the industry. At a school where you can study GCSEs and A-levels alongside the vocational media qualifications you need. Your future is here. The Global Academy, a forward-thinking state school for 14 to 19-year-olds interested in a media career. Visit globalacademy.com to find out more.
Leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale. Tweet at LBC.
23 minutes past 8. Alistair Burt is here, former Foreign Office Minister, Conservative MP. Layla Moran, Liberal Democrat Education Spokesperson and MP for Oxford West and Abingdon. Stephen Power, Shadow Northern Ireland Minister, Labour MP for Ely North. And Natalie Bennett, the former leader of the Green Party. 0345 6060973 if you'd like to put a question to our panel. Rupert is in Isleworth. Rupert, what would you like to say? Actually, you're not in Isleworth, are you? You're somewhere else at the moment.
I'm not, no. I am. I'm in Parliament Square at the moment.
What on earth are you doing there?
Well, I thought I would pop in. I was on my way to go climbing in Hammersmith, and I thought I would pop in and see about this declaration.
Climbing in Hammersmith?
I think you said jiving.
No, climbing. I was cycling here, by the way.
Social climbing.
In Hammersmith.
Where do you climb in Hammersmith?
Climbing wall. You know, the indoor climbing wall.
Right, okay. Well, I'm
sorry,
sure.
Not Hammersmith. I'm talking rubbish. Vauxhall.
Okay, well that makes all the difference. What would you like? What would you like? Can we all just shut up in the studio for a moment so we can actually let Rupert ask his question?
Thank you. Okay, so obviously we've had a declaration on cross-party declaration in favour of Labour's motion to declare a national climate emergency, which is terrific news. I've been involved with in fact, with some of the political outreach that Sintra and Burnham did last week and meeting MPs. But on the same day, I'm sure it has not missed your attention that the High Court ruled against climate-based challenge against Heathrow expansion. Now that did come up in the debate this afternoon. I listened to most of it, but the justification for that, and I quote, was the Paris Agreement does not form part of UK law. Now, I guess my question to the panel would be, considering the enormous upswell in opinion and support for action on climate, the declaration of emergency, etc., not only does this look somewhat anachronistic and out of place, but is it a justification for, I guess, taking climate, the Paris Agreement rather more seriously, and possibly re-evaluating the national policy statement on Heathrow expansion or airport expansion in general?
All right. Rupert, thank you for that. Layla Moran.
Yeah, so the Liberal Democrats have been long opposed to any airport expansion anywhere, actually, and Heathrow was top of that list. And for exactly that reason. Climate change, as recently, because of the wonderful, Extinction Rebellion, I think, whilst, yes, it was disruptive and annoying to people, that was kind of the entire point, was to bring it to people's attention. And I, stood there with 2,000 students from Oxford. They were protesting about climate change. I'm so happy that we're talking about this stuff, but I completely agree with you. And I'm really pleased that today we've made that declaration. When I called the first debate on the main floor of the House nearly 2.5 years, a few weeks ago, I called for it. Caroline Lucas called for it. We're working cross-party to try and do it. I'm so pleased that we've now got there. But it cannot be just a statement. Otherwise, it's just an empty box with nothing in it. We now need to follow this up with action. I think this is exactly the kind of thing that we need to do. We need to reevaluate how we do the whole of the economy, how we tax, how we decarbonise, how we do absolutely everything from the ground up.
Do you agree with Extinction Rebellion that they one of their demands was to reduce our carbon footprint to zero by 2025?
So actually my view on this is I don't think we should be taking specific stance. Any political party should necessarily be taking specific stances on specific things. What we need to do is listen to the scientists. If the scientists say right now that we need to be zero carbon by 2050, actually let's aim a bit higher, let's say 2045, just to make sure we get there. Just in case.
That is government policy by 2050.
But now it is. So it's net zero. I thought it was 80% reduction by now. and the scientists.
I'm sure
are going
Natalie has got
Natalie
these fingers.
Can tell me.
Yeah, 80%, I believe, is the current. Yeah,
that's why I understood. So it was 80% reduction by 2050. Actually, I understand that the scientists are now saying that we need 100% reduction by 2050. And my view, and the Liberal Democrat view, is that actually we should aim for 2045 because that's when let's make sure that we get to that target. But if the scientists then come back and say, you know what, guys, we got the model wrong. We actually think it needs to be 2040. There's something that we've understood. That's what we should do. And actually, what I'd rather see is the government sign up to. We will just implement what the scientists say. Greta Thunberg came. That's what she said. Very simple message. Just do what the science says.
Natalie Bennett, that sounds a much more reasonable approach in terms of practicality than adopting what Extinction Rebellion say, which is by 2025, which would surely mean that we'd have to abandon all air travel, ban cars on 3 days a week, or whatever. That's the only way you would be able to do it, or kill all cows.
Well, first of all, I think it's really important to say what Layla just said. The idea that we can just leave this to the scientists is absolutely wrong. These are political choices. These are political decisions. We have to make decisions that look after the poorest and the most vulnerable in our society. We have to look at who actually gives these up. That's not a decision for the scientists. That's a decision for politicians, for leaders. What was in terms of the target, what we have is lots of councils around the country, scores of councils have said they're going to aim to make their cities, communities, zero carbon by 2030. There's huge targets being set there. And it's really worth focusing on how fast change happens. I think we have an unrealistic idea. If you look at the graphs of how fast the price of solar panels went down, it collapsed far faster than anyone expected. The graphs are just a huge line down. If you look at how fast we've seen solar and onshore wind in particular come to parity or indeed to being cheaper than even coal around the world. Once you start the change, once you show the will, these are all questions of political will. We know where the science is.
You'd be fully in favour of a lot more nuclear power then, because of course that has zero carbon.
No, because if you look at the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, said we have 12 years to turn this around. Nuclear power, aside from all of the other arguments, is simply too slow. You can put solar panels on your roof in a couple of weeks' time. You can put up an onshore wind farm in a few months. Nuclear is just too late, aside from all of the other issues around nuclear.
For now, the cheapest,
would
you even accept in the long term that it is part of the solution, not the whole solution, but just part of it?
No, it's very clear that renewables are the answer, plus the great forgotten area, which is energy conservation. The cleanest, greenest, best possible energy you can have is the energy you don't need to use. We have a huge problem in Britain with the quality of our housing stock. We've got to ensure that people have warm, comfortable, affordable heat homes. And that's a demonstration of the fact that many of these things, they're not a problem, they're actually an opportunity. We're trashing our planet now and creating a really miserable society.
This declaration of an emergency is just a giant piece of virtue signalling.
Well, I think it's good that we've got those words in there, but words have to be matched by action. And to go back to Rupert, and well done, Rupert, for being out there on the streets. That's what we've seen, people taking action, people are leading. Some companies are following that and the government's a very slow third. We can't blame the High Court for today's decision. It's only a judicial review. What has to change is government policy, which means no Heathrow third runway.
We'll come to Alistair and Stephen after the news. They might be relieved to hear, or not. It's 8:30, news headlines with Josh Coop.
Theresa May has sacked the Defence Secretary over the leaking of information from the National Security Council. A story about Chinese tech firm Huawei being involved in building Britain's 5G network emerged in the Daily Telegraph last week. The Prime Minister says there is compelling evidence Gavin Williamson was responsible for sharing the secret information, but he strenuously denies being involved. Former Labour MP Fiona Onasanya has been removed from her seat in Peterborough. Voters in the constituency voted against her in a recall petition after she was found guilty of lying to police over a speeding fine. And the Environment Secretary says the next generation will face the consequences if action is not taken now to help tackle climate change. Michael Gove has acknowledged MPs face a climate emergency, but stopped short of backing Labour demands to officially declare one. LBC weather: rain should largely dry away overnight, but continuing across the northwest and the southeast of England. Chilly and clear elsewhere, a low of between 6 and 1 degrees.
This is LBC.
Before you head off for a fun weekend, check you've got everything. Smart key entry and push button start, automatic climate control, advanced safety system. We've already packed them all into the spacious Jazz EX for you, now at 0% APR representative with no deposit. Visit honda.co.uk to find out more. Honda dealers are credit brokers, not lenders. Finance provided by Honda Finance Europe, authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Terms and conditions apply.
You've got plenty going on between now and August the 29th, so here's the question. Do you have the time to make a PPI claim before then? If not, don't panic, because here at the Claims Guys, we do have the time and the experience to manage the claims process for you. So if you've got more important things to do than manage a PPI claim, just text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now.
The Claims Guys.
Alternatively, you can complain free to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman.
5 out of 5. It's a fantastic smart TV, decent value for money, and the picture quality is incredible. Not that I've actually watched it, never even used it. That's right, this is a fake review. And I can paint quite the picture for the right price, of course, wasting your time and your money.
A fake review could cost you more than you think. A Which membership helps you avoid these lies. Search Which for impartial product reviews. Which, keep questioning.
Hi there, I'm Jill from Network Rail with some important news if you're travelling over the early and late Maybank holidays. As part of ongoing work to improve the railways, we're carrying out essential rail upgrades across different parts of the UK. From Saturday the 4th until Monday the 6th, and Saturday the 25th to Monday the 27th of May. This means some services will change and some won't be running. To keep your plans on track, make sure to check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/May.
If you started your own furniture store today, you might not call it Fishpools. But if it was $18.99 and your name was Ernest Fishpool, well, it actually was. And he actually did. These days, Fishpools in Waltham Cross is one of the largest furniture stores in the southeast, with a stunning range of on-trend designs. Get up to 30% off in our 120th Big Birthday Sale and see our furniture and home accessories in-store and at fishpools.co.uk. That's a website, Ernest?
It took a company owner,
an electronics assembler,
a clean room operator,
an engineering group,
a test technician,
robotic equipment,
a quality inspector,
and me, Chris, a relationship director from Lloyds Bank, to make Kingfield Electronics a power in electronic manufacturing.
Because by working together with the business, he provided the finance for machinery renewal that saw Kingfield Electronics double their output over 4 years. Lloyds Bank, by the side of business.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
8:35 is the time on LBC. Alistair, Burt, Layla, Moran, Stephen Pound, Natalie, Bennett with me. We're in the middle of answering, they are in the middle of answering a question from Rupert, who's at Parliament Square. He's been with some of the climate change protesters there. He's saying, is this decision, or is this statement by Jeremy Corbyn today, or MPs endorsing a Labour motion to declare a formal climate and environment emergency, the right decision, and what should happen now? Stephen Pound, it's no good just passing an emergency resolution, is it? So it's sort of like a student union. You've actually got to do something.
Well, it puts down a marker. And I must say, Rupert's there at the moment. I was there an hour or so ago, and I don't think I've heard Jeremy Corbyn so happy in years. He made a blistering, barnstorming speech. Actually even heard the Jeremy Corbyn business coming up again. But the interesting thing is, once you do this, you cannot, I think, take a completely Manichean approach and say everything on one side is good, everything on the other side is bad. We cannot simply say we're going to close down Heathrow Airport tomorrow and everybody's going to sail out of Rye Harbour or something. I happen to think that expansion of Heathrow Airport could be environmentally sound and safe and sensible.
How?
By reopening the third runway, by having a steeper rate of takeoff and descent, not dumping avgas out in the atmosphere, and by using the new technology, because either we're going to say no air freight at all.
For those at home, Natalie is holding her head in her hands.
Well, of course she is, but we have a civilised disagreement on this one. But I honestly think that you can actually make Heathrow Airport a less polluting and a more environmentally safe and sensible place and operation, and that is the view of my constituents, who overwhelmingly support the expansion of it, and not just on economic grounds.
Because they work there?
I said not just on economic grounds, and the fact most of us in West London, I've lived in West London all my life. The airport's always been there. We knew it was there, and there used to be 3 runways. There's 2 do now. And I think we can actually use technology. We can actually, in some cases, science the hell out of the problem.
That is a good point, though, Natalie, isn't it? Because we all know that over the years, technology has created cleaner air travel. A lot of the new planes are actually a lot cleaner. I know you're looking at me very sceptically, but it is true, isn't it?
Well, Ian, you and I have a long track record on this. I did once make you spit your coffee into your microphone when I said the Greens wanted to close City Airport.
You can't have done that because I don't drink coffee.
Well, maybe whatever fluid it was. But the fact is, actually, we've just had Greta Thunberg visiting, and there is a great deal of future to be had here, which is lots of us, and I've just been to Bologna by train. There's huge potentials to expand and support train travel across Europe. It doesn't mean that you can't travel. It just means that flights are not the way to travel. If we actually saw investment, support, encouragement for that kind of travel, then that's a much better option. The fact is, it's not just me saying this. It's the Committee on Climate Change that says, we can't expand aviation. We're looking at a situation where it just basically swallows up all of our carbon allocation, and we've got no chance to do anything else.
Alistair, Burt.
Yeah. I think one thing we should take out of today's debate was the way in which it was handled by both sides. Apart from those who take a very extreme line, one who would like everything to be done on climate change tomorrow and others who deny it's happening, a lot of people would have welcomed the fact that Parliament today tried to find something that they agreed on. The truth is, you can't say that the Conservative government has not done anything about climate change. No one can realistically put that forward. But is there more we can do? Of course there is. Last year was the greenest year ever for electricity production in the UK. 37% of our electricity came from renewables last year. It was 6% in 2010. We've cut greenhouse gas emissions by a quarter since we came into office. There is a process going on. What Layla was saying, of course you listen to the scientists, but as Natalie said, then politicians have to interpret and do things. We all have to accept that going on as we are is unlikely to be the way forward. But how do we incorporate the sort of changes that are necessary to meet the targets that not only the scientists, but the community and all of us want to see in a manner that is understandable and acceptable to people? Where are the hard edges going to be? On air travel, for example, I don't think anyone believes that a sudden stop to air travel is in any way possible. But how are we going to reduce the emissions? A lot of people talk about new technology in air. They're already working on electric planes, which are not daft. There are people working on these. New technology seems to be the opportunity for all. As you mentioned, solar panels. There are ways now of dealing with the climate change issues that weren't there before. So that is the future. Well, we've got to take seriously what we've been offered, but I hope people would have seen that the way in which the government responded today to a motion from Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party was sensible. We know more has to be done, but really we are doing things. The United Kingdom has led the way in many places, and we have to be prepared to do more. But the rubber has yet to hit the road in terms of everything that will affect individual lifestyle.
20 seconds,
Yeah, just
Layla.
very short. I mean, it's about choices, isn't it? In the end, it's about, we've got our money, how are we going to spend it? And we've got things like the Oxford to Cambridge Expressway. Average price at the moment is roughly about £5 billion to build a massive highway between Oxford to Cambridge that actually no one in Oxford or Cambridge actually wants. Instead, wouldn't we be better off spending that £5 billion on inter-county connectivity by rail,
HS2,
which actually people would do?
East-West Rail
Well,
is
that's
already
already, no, but not
Okay,
inter-county.
well, I don't really want to open up a new debate on that at the moment because I want to move on to the next question. Stephen is a new caller in Dagenham. Stephen, what would you like to ask?
Good evening, everyone. So my question considers the ongoing crisis in Venezuela at the moment. My wife comes from Venezuela, and she has her parents are still living in the country. And actively protesting right now in what's going on in the country right now. And for the past long time, the most the international community has done in response to the Maduro regime is at most condemnation or a call for elections. My question to you is, when will the UK and the wider international community finally do something? We've entered into international affairs in other countries for less. When are we going to help out Venezuela?
Okay, all right, good question. Stephen Pound.
Yeah, look, I think intervention doesn't work in these particular cases. I can't think of a particular example where some other countries come in and actually sorted out the problems. Mike Pompeo
Kosovo.
it's in specific cases where there's a question of military intervention, by all means. But look, when you actually consider the reputation of the United States, going right back to Allende and Chile, going right the way, I don't think it's actually going to help the situation. It seems to me that Maduro is toppling now. He is wobbly. If you looked at what was happening yesterday, you actually had the civil guard on the streets actually attacking the people who are supporting Maduro. It's almost impossible to believe how the country with the biggest oil reserves on earth can somehow plunge into it with a 1,000+% inflation, and yet there is something chronically wrong with it. The sanctions from America argument is nonsense. I mean, American sanctions only started a few weeks ago. The idea that this is something that's caused by the evil Yankees doing it. There is a huge problem. I'm never ever going to be one of those starry-eyed people who say that there's something wonderful in the state of Venezuela and we should support it.
A lot of your party people do think that.
That's we are a party that actually discusses and disagrees on occasion. The days of the pager and being on message are gone.
What do you make of the fact, though, that when you look at the international community and who's on which side in this, you have America, most European countries, most Latin American countries on the side of Guaido, and on the side of Maduro, you've got Russia. You've got China, you've got Iran, and you've got momentum. What does that tell us?
That's an interesting conflation. I think it says that there's a considerable confusion there, in all honesty, as there is in the whole of South America. There's still a confusion. I mean, you're having the same difficulties with loyalties in Brazil at the present time, and you'll get this over and over again. But look, my substantive point, Iain, is that if the West, in quotes, feels that it can intervene in the sovereign affairs of Venezuela, then I think they will make the situation actually worse.
All right. Alistair, former Foreign Office Minister.
You would have been the one who had to sign the order, wouldn't you?
Well, it wouldn't be me because I don't know. Latin America wasn't my portfolio. I don't know much about Latin America, but Chief Whip, I do know quite a bit about the Middle East if you were contemplating vacancies at present. But let's... sorry, I couldn't resist.
Job application live on air.
Stephen's question poses a challenge.
We'll put that up as a Facebook little viral video, so we can mount the campaign here. Anyway, sorry.
No, not my decision, and I'm very appreciative of anyone who considers me. Stephen's question poses the most difficult issue we have, and that is when does right to protect kick in? And we have so many examples on both sides of this, intervention and non-intervention. I'm with Stephen in that I can't see a Western military intervention here, but if you don't do that, what do you do?
Support Colombia.
But I think, we are. I think people recognise the pressures.
Colombia is taking the strain at the moment.
Yes, they are, but that's all very well. But that's a symptom.
And what's Belize doing? Belize is doing nothing.
That's a symptom, not the cause. How do you deal with the issue in Venezuela? Now, I'm not a Latin American expert, but my sense is that the decisions have to ultimately be internal. Look at Sudan. Look at what Sudan has gone through. Dealing with an oppressive individual guilty of war crimes, charged with war crimes, and a process over a lengthy period of time appears to be producing some degree of change in Sudan. Now, I think I would be extremely hesitant. We're a long way from it here in the United Kingdom. International condemnation of what has been done in Venezuela is essential. It is an object lesson of how fragile we all are. Venezuela, an oil-rich state, a state that not many years ago would have been perfectly seen as a progressive country in Latin America. Things can change incredibly quickly if you take away the building blocks of life, if you produce an ideological theory that looks great on paper and you're determined to ram it through. People's lives can change markedly. But I think the solution has to be local and regional rather than external. That would be my sense
I'm
to
just
Stephen.
wondering what the people of Biggleswade might think of this, whether there might be opportunities for town twinning so football teams can play each other.
Biggleswade at the moment is celebrating Biggleswade FC, the newest of the three Biggleswade teams, Biggleswade United, Biggleswade Town and Biggleswade FC. A remarkable treble that they've secured, and their reserves have also won their division as well. So Biggleswade will be thinking about other things than opportunities in Venezuela, but should there be anything that would come about that would help community ties, I know the good people of North East Bedfordshire would be the first to offer.
Well, I did promise you the opportunity, and I've delivered on my promise.
And I should include Berry's promotion last night.
We're going to get reactions from Layla and Natalie in just a moment, but first, Zach has emailed to say, Stephen Pound is fabulous, just fabulous. He always excites me, by the way he speaks with such passion.
Is this Zach
Love
Goldsmith?
you, Mr. Pound. No, it's not Zach Goldsmith.
Oh. Curses. I thought I'd pulled.
Anyway, it's 8:46.
LBC.
Managed to fill those jobs yet?
Oh, I'm struggling.
You know Mark in HR? He was telling me about Hiring Hub. It connects you to loads of vetted specialist recruitment agencies, so you can widen your candidate search quickly, without any hassle.
Really?
Yeah. You post a job, and recruitment agencies you select send you their best candidates.
Want to fill professional jobs faster? Search Hiring Hub and post your job today.
Mark's nice, isn't he?
Really?
Have you ever bought an investment sold by Barclays, Halifax, Lloyds, Santander or any other bank or financial advisor? Investments like stocks and shares ISAs, investment bonds and certain types of pension can be risky. If you lost money with one of these investments, you could be owed thousands of pounds in compensation. Even if you no longer have the investment or the paperwork, here at Goodwin Barrett we can still help. To start your free assessment with Goodwin Barrett, text GOOD to 60777. That's GOOD to 60777.
At Thomas Cook, we know a thing or two about holidays. In fact, we've been perfecting them since 1841. That holiday feeling has always started with us. So, why trust anyone else? This summer, dive into our new generation Casa Cook and Cook's Club hotels and save up to £300 on selected holidays. Visit thomascook.com or your local Thomas Cook store today. Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it. Minimum spend, conditions apply, ATOL protected.
At Ford, we know it's not our vans alone that keep Britain running. It's the people that drive them. You. From plumbers to plasterers, engineers to electricians, we're proud to serve those who serve our nation with a new range of commercial vehicles. Take the work out of parking with the tough new Transit, available with enhanced active park assist. Or power up for the future with our incredible mild hybrid engines being introduced on selected models. There's something in the lineup that'll serve you. Discover the range at ford.co.uk or visit your local transit centre. Ford Commercial Vehicles. Backbone of Britain.
At Wickes, starting tomorrow, there's buy one, get one free on all wood care, including great brands like Ronseal and Cuprinol. Ends Monday. Terms apply.
Imagine getting all kinds of rewards just by going about your everyday shopping. Earn points every time you spend, then use your points to get the things you actually want. Filling up at the petrol station could lead to getting your hands on the latest fashion, and supermarket checkout could even take you to airport check-in. Use points to get whatever it is you want. Let's make life more rewarding with the American Express Preferred Rewards Gold Credit Card. Don't live life without it. Representative 57.6% APR variable. Annual fee applies after the first year. Terms apply. 18 plus, subject to approval. Search Amex Gold.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
Don't forget you can watch us on our Twitter page, Facebook, YouTube and on our website at lbc.co.uk. Alistair, Burt, Layla, Moran, Stephen Pound and Natalie Bennett here with us. We were just talking, what were we talking about? I can't even remember now. Venezuela. Layla, Moran.
Well, yeah, so I think I have to say I violently find myself in violent agreement with both Steve and Alistair on what they've said about intervention. It needs to be solved from within Venezuela, with support from the international community. I think what has struck me about this situation is actually I feel really proud right now to be British, because what we're seeing there is demonstrations that have gone completely out of control. We've got UN Human Rights Office have said today that they're extremely worried by the reports that they've seen of throwing of Molotov cocktails, of demonstrators being detained. Actually, it makes me reflect on our country. And whilst, yes, we are in a god-awful mess in so many different ways, at least we don't have that. And so whatever the international community can do...
demonstrations that were not met with violence or anything like that on either side. I actually took the same point.
Okay, Natalie.
Well, I think first of all we need to come back to Stephen and his wife and think with sympathy of all of the Venezuelans who are here and now in the UK, worrying about relatives, worrying about friends, worrying about the communities they may have originated in. And I think we also need to think about the people of Venezuela and the actual suffering. When we just debate high politics, we're not really focusing on the fact, there's lots of people there suffering, in a very, very bad situation. And of course, it's always the poor, the disadvantaged, the indigenous people who suffer worst in those kind of situations. But if we think about what Britain should do, I entirely agree that military interventionism has been a disastrous policy that's created absolute chaos, Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. But what Britain should be doing is looking to be a genuine champion all around the world of human rights and democracy. And we still have a long way to go. We have a great history, lots of British lawyers, lots of British campaigners really led in human rights, UN human rights principles. But if we look at things like selling arms to Saudi Arabia, we have a very, very tainted reputation around the world. If we can restore our reputation, then us speaking up for human rights and democracy has much more force.
OK, thank you very much for the question. Let's go on to another one. Jane is in Liverpool. Hello, Jane.
Hello.
Hi, what would you like to ask?
I'd like to ask if any of the panel would ever write a foreword for a book that they hadn't read.
Now, this is obviously referring to Jeremy Corbyn writing the foreword for the book by, was it J.A. Hobson, I think his name was, which contained, shall we say, quite a few anti-Semitic words. I have to go to you, Stephen Pound.
I was asked, I'm just trying to know whether Owen Jones is published by Biteback, which is, of course, Ian's...
Owen Jones was never published by Biteback.
Just checking. But he wrote a book called Chavs, and he said, would I write something for it? And I said, yeah, sure, happy to do. And only when I wrote it and it was published, I suddenly thought to myself, good Lord, what is going to be on either side of that bit that I've written? So the answer to the question from Jane from Liverpool is no, I wouldn't.
But what about the fact that he did write a foreword? It wasn't just a little endorsement for the back cover, it was an actual foreword. Either he read the book before he wrote the foreword, or he didn't and got someone else to write it. Either way, it doesn't look good, does it, given what else has happened on the issue of anti-Semitism?
I'd like to know when he did it, and whether the book had actually been published at the time, because quite often people say, will you write an introduction to my book?
This is
1912.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so the book had been out for quite some time.
Natalie?
No, I mean, once you associate yourself with something, particularly, if we think about the history of how old this book is, it's obviously possible that historically people said things that are now utterly unacceptable, and to write, an old book like that without reading it, if a book is written by someone you trust implicitly, I mean, of course you should always do it, but if it's a person you trust, who lines up with your politics, I can imagine a situation where realistically you might, but something like this, no.
Layla?
In the end, we're all accountable for what we put our names to. And I completely agree. You have to, if you're not going to do it yourself, and I can understand how, he's a busy man, maybe he got someone else to do it for him, but in the end, we are all accountable. And I personally would be very, very reticent.
Obviously, leaders of political parties get asked to do this sort of thing,
and they should
all
say,
the time.
And my view is, if you're not
sure,
say no.
a good warning for you for the future, possibly.
Quite right.
It's like the selfie trap.
Have you made your decision yet, by the way, as to whether you are going to run?
I told you before we started, I'm absolutely focused on the local elections tomorrow. I'm really nervous.
But are you then going to be concentrating on the European elections?
Exactly.
Or are we going to get a decision after Thursday?
A decision needs to be imminent. Look, it's coming. I just need to. I need to focus on the thing right in front of me, and right now it's local elections.
Alistair?
I'm not running for leadership of the Conservative Party.
Or the Liberal Democrats.
Or the Liberal Democrats. No. Coming back to the question, you are indeed accountable for something like a foreword, and even if you are the leader of a party, there's got to be a process and a system of assimilating information. And put your name to something like this. There are some really, really terrible quotes in this, and some of them are absolutely part of a common attitude towards anti-Semitism, which has run from books such as that. It is a real shocker, and I don't think there's any defence to it.
Jane, what do you think?
Well, it's a book by an author who a Marxist, a knowledgeable Marxist, would have read, apparently. And the thing is, because it was written so long ago, what one could do, if you admired the writer otherwise, would simply be to not to ignore the racism, whatever it was, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, whatever, homophobia, but would simply be to distance yourself by saying, look, when this book was written, there were ideas then that are not acceptable now, and I take issue with them.
Okay, Jane, thank you very much.
Henry Williamson has recently, been republished. Now, Henry Williamson he wrote Tarka the Otter, but he was also a fascist and is a great admirer of Hitler. And some of the people who've written books, introductions to Henry Williamson's books, are then finding themselves being branded with it. I think you need to be pretty cautious. But I'm going to pop down to Northolt Library first thing tomorrow morning so I can get hold of a copy of this because...
I really wouldn't bother if I were you.
Really?
I don't think it'll educate you very much.
Okay, well, we'll park
anyway,
that one.
We've got a final question, which I'm going to ask you each to spend just about 45 seconds answering. You'll laugh when you hear what the question is because it's impossible to answer in 45 seconds.
Well,
Andy is in Littlehampton.
Good evening, Ian.
Hi.
Good evening to the panel.
Evening, Andy.
I'm sorry, I'm going to mention the dreaded D word. Look, Brexit. Okay, I'm looking at the clock face. Imagine a big clock face, Big Ben clock face. I'm looking at it to tell the time. Yeah, what politicians have done over the last 3 years is they've ripped that clock face off, and they expect me to work out the time by looking at the mechanisms and the cogs behind it. And they're guiding me through these mechanisms. The Conservatives have played this game where they had to...
Okay, look, I need the question, Andy.
Yeah, well, Labour have now reached the same waypoint but they don't recognise it. Labour must simplify their Brexit position. They have reached the waypoint in the sand where they must jump to one side or the other.
All right, Andy, thank you very much for that. Alistair, Burt, they've come out with a policy. What do you make of it?
The Labour Party seemed to stand collectively on a platform that they said it would accept the referendum result. Everything they've done in Parliament since has mitigated against that. We ought to leave with a deal, create a new relationship with Europe. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. We must create something new and different for Britain. It would be best if Parliament as a whole got round that. The best way to do it in the first place is to vote for withdrawal agreement and get the process of the new relationship with Europe underway, and the sooner the better.
Natalie, do you understand Labour's policy?
I think I understand they're sitting very, very hard on that fence, and it's got some really sharp spikes on it. The Green Party, we've been consistent, reliable all the way through. We call for what we call the ratification referendum. Within a month or so of the 2016 vote, that's the only democratic way forward because no destination was specified in terms of what kind of Brexit, which is why we're in this mess now. We celebrate freedom of movement of people, and we want to keep that and keep the protections of Europe.
Layla?
At some point, if you're going to ride two horses, then your trousers are going to split, aren't they? We've got to understand where Labour is.
Well, as a Liberal Democrat, you must be used to that,
well,
surely.
I don't ride horses, actually. But what I will say is that, it's now becoming clear. Gloria Del Piero tweeted right after that, Labour is not absolutely backing a confirmatory referendum. Therefore, if you vote Labour, you are voting for a Brexit party.
If you sit on the fence too long, obviously the iron enters the soul, but this is not that case. The problem with the Labour position is we can't simply put it in a single line. What we want, we accept the result of the June 2016 election. You can't deny that 17.5 million people got it wrong. And the idea that you can sort of chase the chimera of another referendum and then one after that and then the best of three, that's nonsense. That's for the birds. There's no way that we could possibly have yet another referendum, whether you call it a confirmatory one or not. So what we have to do is the least sexy thing in politics is make the best out of a damn bad job. I'm a passionate European. I consider myself a European more than I consider myself English. But we've got to make this work, and by making it work, we've got to be part of a customs union. There cannot be a British border on the island of Ireland. We cannot allow that. We have to actually incorporate into British law and observe all those freedoms that we've done. We can do that and still leave.
Very quickly, Alistair, but that's where these cross-party talks are heading, towards some sort of customs union, aren't they?
If they do, and it's put to Parliament and Parliament agreed, at least we can move forward.
Alistair, Burt, Layla Moran, Stephen Pound, Natalie Bennett, thank you very much. And James Elliott on Twitter congratulates me on my fabulous shirt. So we end on a high. To all of you, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to LBC. It's 9 o'clock.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock. Gavin Williamson has been sacked as Defence Secretary following an investigation into a leak by the National Security Council. The Prime Minister says there's compelling evidence he was behind the disclosure. Last week, the Daily Telegraph reported on secret plans to allow Chinese tech firm Huawei to help build the UK's 5G network. Mr Williamson strenuously denies being involved. Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford West and Abingdon, Layla Moran, has told LBC it's deeply damaging.
So much much of this government's modus operandi has been about keeping stuff from Parliament. It's been through motions in the House that we've got the information that we've needed to make some of the big decisions of the day. That said, when it comes to these very sensitive matters at the National Security Council, you have to hope that a government operates in a way that's more professional than leaking when they've got issues like this.
Some senior MPs are now calling for a criminal investigation into breaches of the Official Secrets Act. Labour's Deputy Leader Tom Watson has told LBC the leak is potentially illegal.
If he has leaked state secrets from the National Security Council, he is deemed to have signed the Official Secrets Act, whether he signed it or not. I remember the briefing myself. And if any other member of MOD staff had done that, they would be prosecuted under the Official Secrets Act, and the law should apply to him equally.
Well, tonight, Downing Street has announced Penny Mordaunt will take over from Mr Williamson at the Ministry of Defence, and Rory Stewart replaces her as the International Development Secretary. Plenty more on this story coming up here on LBC. A former Labour MP who was removed from the party for lying to avoid a speeding ticket has lost her seat in Parliament. 19,000 of Fiona Onasanya's constituents in Peterborough have signed a recall petition triggering a by-election. An urgent review is underway over fears a suspected rapist being looked for by police in London may have been wrongly released from prison. 34-year-old Joseph McCann is wanted over the abduction and rape of 2 women last week. He was released in February after serving 10 years for aggravated burglary. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been jailed for 50 weeks after he was found guilty of breaching bail conditions. He was arrested at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he'd been living for the last 7 years.